My name is Jay Cohen, and like most people on YouTube, I tried to position myself as the guy that has the answers and who is wise. But the reality is, I'm just figuring this out as I go along, and I'm trying to turn around and share the lessons that I learned so that you don't have to repeat the process. So, this lesson is a biggie. Have you ever looked around in your life and felt like it had a mind of its own? Like it's just like a steam train rolling in a certain direction, and you're not quite sure why that's the direction it's moving in and how you got there. You just kind of look around one day and wonder. And I had another one of these moments. They're relatively common in my life, honestly. And it had to do with what I'm doing here on YouTube, where all of a sudden I looked around and I realized you're turning into exactly how you were before in the last business that you had that made me incredibly miserable. I My life started to shift and move when I decided to do this as a career, as something that I was making money from. And then a switch in my brain flipped into, okay, you got to do all the things, be the weird robot guy that you build the funnels and you have the video sales letter and you do all the stuff that everyone will tell you to do to be successful. But the problem with that is that it doesn't align to my heart. And I think that's the case probably for a lot of you guys. And so the question that I contemplated and sat with is, why does this continue to happen? And yes, there is some sort of internal patterning that is at play here, but I also think there are some external forces that have their hand in this. And I got lucky. As I was contemplating, I was also reading this book called Reality Transurfing, and in there he was able to name this thing that I'm feeling. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience of somebody naming an internal state that you have, like giving language to it, and it's just this like, yes, that person understands, they get it. I couldn't even said it, they said it better than me. I had this happen with Susan Cain in the book Bittersweet as a side note. In this case, the term is a term pendulum. And the idea is that there are these structures that grab our attention. And they are there to grab our attention. And in fact, they feed off our attention and our energy. And these structures, you kind of swing from one side to the other side. So as an example, in this case, when I started this pursuit on YouTube, it was so pure and it was so true to me, and it was just creative freedom and me synthesizing what I had taken in and sharing it, because I was a fitness coach, much deeper than that, but for the sake of ease, I'm going to say that in my last life. And so I knew teaching something helps something land inside of me. So that was on the one side. And then, as I said, this pendulum started to swing. And on the other side is the business and the marketing and the sales and the making money. And I could just feel myself moving from one pole to the other pole and battling against myself. And as this idea of pendulums came to me, I really was able to let go of some of the self-judgment, because I saw that the pendulum is there for a reason, that I'm going through these swings because I'm supposed to find the middle. I'm supposed to go from this pole to this pole, because along the way, I'm gradually going to swing less and less to the extremes, and I'm going to be able to find the middle way, this path that requires the least amount of energy to come back to center, which means I can put all of that energy into the thing that it is that I want to do out in the world. The middle way is like the art of doing nothing. Wu Wei, it's called in the East. And I've come to see my life as a series of overcorrections. It's like so clear to me how, those of you that know my story, I was an addict when I was younger, and then the overcorrection was to run away to the Marine Corps. And then getting out of the Marine Corps, it was like, I want money. This has been a motivating thing in my life for quite a long time. So it was, let me get a degree in finance and go and do the Wall Street thing. And then I don't want to spend that much time at work, so let me follow a passion. And that's how I opened up the last business. It's like constant overcorrection to overcorrection to overcorrection. And I think what's required to stop that is what I'm doing now, finally, is this reflection, taking time to look at how I wound up here. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be able to stop it, but at least I can understand how I wound up here. And as far as tools go for that reflection, the first one that popped to mind is I've got a buddy who owns, it's called the Monk Manual. Give that a Google. It pairs being with doing and helps us to reflect each day. Or another thing might be the morning pages. Julia Cameron, where you wake up and you just write 3 pages about 20 minutes in the morning. But reflection is one of the things that completely changed my life because it allows me to feel like catch the pendulum before it totally swings, as far as it could possibly go in the other direction. Because once it's loaded that way, when you release, all that can happen is to drive back across to the other side. So, another example, just to give you another thought here is and it's funny, if you're familiar with the gene keys, which is a system that I talk about often, my purpose is the 60th gene key, which is limitation, realism, justice. And it's all about divine balance, right? Finding balance, finding the middle way. And so it makes sense that this is something that I'm talking about right now. But another place is on the one side, and this is something that I'm really, I almost said struggling with, but rolling with, is in my awareness. On the one side, we've got manifestation and goals, right? Control where our life is headed. On the other side, we've got the throw the hands up, whatever comes, God's got it. It's in its hands, and I don't have to do anything. And for a long time in my life, I was so masculine, so goals, so manifestation. And that looked like, every year doing the big goals that I want to accomplish that year, doing quarterly sprints. So every 3 months, getting hyper focused on something and like really digging in on it, having a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan, like all of those things that people tell you to do. Then my life fell apart. Things got really difficult. I was just gripping so tightly and working so hard that I just burned out. Enter pendulum swing. We come across to the other side, and then it was the universe has your back. And it took me a while and a lot of hard work, but I was able to just let go almost completely and just forget about goals, forget about trying to control the direction of my life. Just Jesus, take the wheel, if you will. And I can see clearly now that both of those extremes are not true for me. They're not correct. It's somewhere in the middle. And trying to just jump to the middle, I don't think you can ever get there. I think you've got to go from one extreme to the other extreme, and then gradually you'll zero in on what is the right mix or the right balance for you. So going back to saying balancing the creativity with the business, when I was thinking about this or first started thinking about this, where I landed was like, okay, maybe if I do 50% and 50%. So half creativity, half business, that would work great. But I was thinking of it from a linear standpoint. I was thinking of it through the lens of time. So that meant 50% of my time creating, 50% of my time on business. But what I realized in a conversation that I had this morning, and this is why it's so important to be around like-minded people that are going through similar things. Somebody just totally said this in a way that made it crystal clear to me. I realized that balance isn't necessarily 50-50, that for me, perhaps one day on the business side needs to be paired with 4 or 5 days on the meditation, the creativity, the going within. Because if I do that, then when I come out, I'll be able to like really be productive, quote unquote, if you will. The other thing that's important to know with pendulums is that there's like this massive release that happens as the pendulum settles. Because I've been able to get a few of these to settle in my life. For example, meditation. Like I went from a place where I felt like I needed to meditate not at all. And then on the other side, it's all I was doing. And now I feel like I don't even have to think about it. I just go when I go. And honestly, I live my life in a very meditative way. And so now when I do go into meditation, the deep level of connection that I have and the value and utility that it brings to my life is insane, because I'm not wasting this energy swinging from too much to too little. And I do think that this swing is, it's got a life of its own. It's like it's alive. There is something, and this comes from Reality Transurfing, the book where I got the term pendulum. There's something energetic in these pendulums that is like sucking energy in from you, and they are doing their damnedest to stay alive. And I'm not sure why they want to live, other than I think from an energetic sense, everything that has been given energy wants to continue to receive that energy. I think there's much more happening than we can see. So another book I'm reading right now is a book called American Gods by one of my favorite authors, Neil Gaiman. And it's basically the idea of the book is they're in America, and there's the old gods, which is like, actually he's obsessed with Norse mythology. So it's like Odin and Loki, etc. And then there's the new American gods, which is the internet and the television and the phone. And basically, they are fighting for energy. They're fighting for the attention of the people, because the way that they are able to go on living is by people talking about them, sacrificing to them. And I believe that this is the same thing. Like, there are these subtle energetic frequencies that are, I don't know if they're good or bad or neutral, but there's something that is like a vortex that is pulling us in. And if you are not aware of them, you're going to look around and wonder how you got here. Because the reality is that these pendulums are part of the game. I think they are meant to be a part of life, but we've got to be aware of them, or if you don't choose, it's going to choose for you. Right? You're going to end up in this unconscious pendulum that you're playing a game that you don't want to play, or you're on one arc of the pendulum that you don't even want to be on, but because of inertia, it just keeps going. You keep headed in that direction, especially if you sprinkle in some success. Right? We get hungry as humans and we want to see more of that success, and so we double down on the pendulum going in this way. But the deal is, once it gets up to a certain place, it's going to release and it's going to swing back. And when that happens, watch out. Everything is going to be different. Maybe good, maybe bad, but certainly different, and more than likely pretty unstable. So hopefully this is helpful today. Thank you for being here. Like I said, just trying to share more around my journey and more from my heart without needing to script everything or write everything down. If you found this helpful, come on one of the free calls that I do. I do them every couple weeks. I call them wisdom calls because I tried to show myself as wise. So hopefully I'll see you there. You can see the link in the description. All right. Until next time. Bye, guys.